Welcome, everybody, to this week's One People Show. I'm Lisa Harrison, and as usual, we have Bob Wright with us from Pennsylvania.
Hello.
How you doing, beautiful?
I'm doing great. I'm. What can I say? I'm ecstatic. I'm excited. I'm walking.
I know. We'll get into that. We'll give everybody an update soon. And we've got Chris Hales in Melbourne.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Lisa, Bob, Brian, and everybody out there, everywhere, and all of us, the one people. How about that?
Hello. I'm just going to say hello to everybody in the chat room who's saying hello to me. Hello. Hang on. There you go. I typed it in. And we've got Brian sitting over in San Diego.
Hello. How am I feeling today? I'm feeling dandy, I think is the word I'm looking for. Gosh, such an honor to be here with you, Lisa, Chris, Bob.
Dandy and gosh. The first words that came out of your mouth.
I haven't used the word dandy, I think, all my life, but I'm feeling dandy today for some reason. And just so excited about where we're at and what's going on in the world. And, God, what an honor it is to be here as usual. I'm looking forward to the show. It's going to be a good one. Woo!
Yes, to Judy in the chat room. Expansive.
Expansive, yes. Dandy, expansive. Come on, Judy. It's all the same.
Okay. Bob, give everybody an update on your status.
Walking is getting much easier. Rebuilding the muscles is not comfortable, but it's a good pain.
Every time you're in pain, I cheer. So I know that sounds cruel, but
yeah. Pain in this instance is a good thing. But I recently went out in front of my house, and normally I go for a walk, to the end of the sidewalk. But I decided to keep going, and I kept going all the way to my neighbor's house, which is the furthest I've ever walked in a stretch since the accident. I made it all the way there, which is about a football field away. So,
wow.
And making great progress.
That's just extraordinary. I'm so happy for you.
And the wheelchair is actually falling apart, I gather.
The wheelchair is falling apart synchronistically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I kind of patched it back together, and then the charger broke.
It's the baggy handlers on the way to Morocco.
Yeah. Or is it the universe? The universe is just giving you a big hint there, Bob.
Yeah, it's a little kick in the ass.
Good stuff. So, no, you don't need that charger. Flip it.
No, but, actually I've parked it in the corner here, and I've got my walker instead, so I can't even use it in the house anymore because they kind of blocked it in with two couches.
Goodbye, chair.
My loving roommates.
Okay. What's first on the agenda tonight, guys? Do you want to cover off some of the questions that come up in that Facebook thread, or?
Oh gosh, I don't have it in front of me. Let me see if I can go find it.
Well, there seems to be some confusion still, and we will do our best to give you what we know and understand. But at the same time, we don't have all the answers either yet. And what you're getting from us is our opinion and our understanding. I haven't had a good chat with Heather since the last show. I have spoken to her once briefly, and I do know that she has been working on documents. But let's try and cover up and clear up some of these misunderstandings. Project 13 and IUV are not one and the same thing. I have to say that again. Project 13 will be probably the first of many applications that will allow you to access the IUV, but they're not the same thing. Project 13 is Caleb's doing, which came out of a desire to create a platform for the people to be able to communicate and share their data privately, securely, without it being harvested, without it being monetized by others. And that's what it was born from. And as we all know now, with the recent NSA whistleblowing that went on, that there's not much you can do online that isn't harvested. So initially, Project 13 will come out as an information sharing platform, and it will build, it will expand, and it will grow to encompass the replacement for many of the other things that we use on a regular basis, like Skype. Is that clear enough, do you think?
I hope
Has anyone got anything to add to it?
I'd really like to get into this whole value thing, because let me ask any single person that's listening, what price would you place on your soul? What price would you place on your own life? What price would you place on the life of your child, your mother, or any of your loved ones? Or would no price do? Now, maybe you're one of the ones that can think of a price, and if you are, then I hope you're not one of my friends. Right? But understand that you are priceless. That you can't put a price on a human life. There's no price in the world. And because simply the entire universe is contained within you. So why would you put a price on that value? $10 billion, if that's your price, if that's what you're willing to settle for, fine. But for me, there's no price. There is no price. You cannot buy me. I am priceless. And that value that I have, right, can underwrite any form of currency, any form of representation, because gold and silver is only a representation. If you were stranded on a desert island, right, would you rather a bar of gold or another person? Which would be more valuable to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People get in your heads that you are the value. You are currently underwriting the entire world financial system. Each one of your embodiments. That whole gold and silver thing is a
You've got to make that point again.
Okay, again.
This is not a new system. This is exactly how the system has always worked. You have always been the value. The only thing that's changing here is that it's becoming known and transparent. So keep going with that.
Right. So you being the value, right? And your value is limitless, right? You are underwriting everything because you are signing your name, you are taking responsibility for it, and it is your energy that you're putting through. Now, you can monetize that, okay? That's what they've done. They've monetized your value in certificates and bonds and all kinds of sorts of things, right? But those bonds and those certificates, even the gold and the silver, are only representations of what's really underwriting everything, which is you. Once you get that through your head, people say, well, where's the gold back? Where's the silver? And how is this? The trust isn't necessary simply because the trust put the old system or the old corporate structure to bed and return the value back to the people. Now you are the value. It's all secured within your embodiment. Now that that's done, there's no need for the trust. You are the bank. You are your value. Okay? Now we need to learn how to operate with that idea transparently so that we can share our value in order to do what we wish to do. And whether that's a private contract between people, which can be done, or whether that's writing a bond, okay, that you underwrite if someone needs that representation, or whether it's a digital currency exchange. either way, it's you who are underwriting all of it, and it always has been.
And they put a lot of energy and attention into hiding that truth behind a system that's been developing for hundreds of years to control and manipulate the way our entire society and every variable that's connected to it operates. So it's a big horse-sized pill of truth for people to swallow to really understand that, because the control and the manipulation went and goes and still continues to go so deep. So I think a roadblock that people are hitting right now is they're looking for answers from the same level of consciousness that created the problem. You know, the answer is, if I only had this much money, my life would be easier because I would have the resources to buy a loaf of bread, put some gas in my car, and do whatever it is that I feel like doing that requires money. And that's, a big part of that Facebook thread that I shared with you today, Lisa, was, the point of view from some of the people on that thread was, okay, we understand it. We're the value. But I think the big part that's really being misunderstood is how we go from where we are now to the rest of the world understanding that we are the value, and what are the tools that are going to be brought into the picture that allows people to access the things that they require and that they need in life. Now, we've had other discussions on other radio shows where we've talked about this, and these are from a lot of levels. I believe that these are the kinds of things that are being developed as we go. But we talked about these now tools. Only one of very many now tools being this bond option where people are going to be able to take the bond into the bank, exchange the value for fiat currency in order to be able to utilize the value that they have through the IUV exchange system to go out and be able to operate and buy the things that they need to buy. But that's only one tool of many, and it's not the most ideal tool either, because you're pumping more money back into the old broken structure. What the powers that want is, and what they spend billions and trillions of dollars to create the illusion that drives people to continue to go in the direction that they want them to go, is for more money to be bled into the system. They want us to shop till we drop, because the more money that's pumped into the corporations, the more money that's funneled and filtered back into their pockets, and the more it perpetuates this very same problems that exist today. So to be able to truly move onto something better, a system that allows all of the people of the earth to utilize the natural resources that come from the earth, from across the land, to thrive, requires us to create an entirely new way, an entirely new system that is in every way, shape, and form different on every single level imaginable than the one that the majority and the masses operate within today. I'm very unplugged from the system, extremely. I don't pay my taxes. Everybody knows I don't pay my car payment. I quit my job. I don't have insurance on my car. My car doesn't have registration. Every single one of those areas, I've said, nope, not going to play that way anymore. Done. But it still requires me to, at the moment, to have Federal Reserve notes to go and pay my rent or buy groceries. So that is still one area and element of my life that requires me to still operate under the old system, that I am very much looking forward to not having to do that anymore. So you better believe I will be one of the first ones with those now tools that will be, no matter how scary it might be, because when you got nothing to lose, And just like the courtesy notices, the point being was that when you flood the system with these things and they build their way up to the top, then change ultimately happens in large doses as a result of that. So now we're going on to a new phase where the element that's going to set the stage to allow for these things to work is a great many of us using these new tools to bleed into the system to ultimately create a new way, and that's the precipice that we're at right now, as far as I'm concerned.
That well said, Brian. We are at a position right at this moment, right at this point in time, where the next actions that we carry out on a large scale, that is where a lot of people actually take up these tools and use them, are the pivotal ones. Now, I've got a friend who keeps a piece of concrete on his desk as a paperweight, and he was in Berlin in the 80s when the wall came down. He was there the day that it came down, and he collected that piece of concrete. And every time I see it, it's sort of an absolute reminder to me of the power of the people themselves when they act as one. The banks aren't going to like having bonds presented to them because they know that at that moment they're being forced to acquiesce to the shift that's coming. It's going to take numbers to actually get that to work, and we will get it to work. It will ultimately will happen. There will be some sort of shift take place.
Chris, I just want to address a question that keeps coming up in the chat room over and over again about the gold and the silver. And one of the things, one of the things that we discussed when we were in Morocco was this whole concept of gold and silver. And the question that came up in the thread was, where is the gold? Where is all this gold? Where is it stored? The gold that's going to back the IUV, or the silver, or the FRNs. Where's the value that's going to back it? And that's exactly the point that we were trying to make earlier, is that you are the gold and you are the silver. If any of you out there ever listened to the 9-hour marathon interview I did with Al Farah back last year, he talked about this very thing, that all throughout the Bible, when it mentions gold, it's referring to your spirit, your soul, and I know he's going to kick my ass for confusing the two because apparently they're different. And apparently for those in bank, trade and finance, they understand that you can, and some of the people in the strawman movement and all of that who have looked at remedies have also experienced this, that you can go into a court with a gold coin and a silver coin and buy back your soul and buy back your body. And that's what Hedda was saying last week, is the banking system in and of itself is fabulous. It works. What doesn't work is the representation, this facade they've put on top of it, so that we don't look at ourselves as the value. We don't understand that. We look at this representation in the form of a gold bar or a silver coin or a piece of paper. But that's what's being removed. The system as in and as itself, as it stands, can in fact stay with the understanding on everybody's part that we are the value that underwrites everything. So there is no shed somewhere with a big lock on it that's just got floor to ceiling gold bars in it that is going to back the IUV system. Is that clear?
It's clear to me. Okay. Absolutely clear. I think people have been somewhat confused about the actions of Swiss Indo and their offers to actually do things, which have not transpired, by the way. They're still somewhat boiling in the background, but that appears to have completely stalled.
I'll give you an example of
how. Bob, can I need to finish this statement because I want to actually make sure that people understand that there will, as far as the universal exchange is concerned, there can never be a representation of value backing it in any way. The only purpose Swiss Indo ever had was to put some resources, some classic system, current day fiat resources in the hands of people to basically relieve stress and give everybody a breather to understand the enormous shift that's about to take place. That was the only real use that Swiss Indo ever potentially had, in my opinion. Okay, they weren't. They made some very convoluted references to the IUV exchange, and it's never been clear exactly what their plan was. But they did have that potential to be useful. Now that appears to be just simply not transpired at this point. So the position we're left in is the one which I was alluding to a moment ago, was that when we go to a bank with a bond, we, presenting ourselves to them, are embodying that value. You cannot understand how significant that is to the banking system. When someone walks up and says, I'm the creditor, I know you've committed fraud against me in the past by tricking me into thinking you were, but now I know that I am. That's the point where the truth of the whole situation comes out. And that's why it's so important for us to actually take this step, because this is us asserting our free will. When we assert our free will, we get back our freedom. So, and numbers are required. They're not going to do this willingly. I'm hoping there'll be a bank or two that basically decide to go with this, because they're the ones that are going to survive, because they're the ones that people will actually deal with while we make this transition. And it is a transition. This is temporary stuff. Now, did I just lose everybody, or is that silence on hearing out there just silence?
I was just muted.
Just muted. That's okay.
Me too.
There was a dog barking that disappeared, and it sounded like the signal had actually dropped. But really important to understand, at that moment, like Chase Binney, when he presented himself to the Attorney General, he was embodying his value. He was being it. And that's the whole point of this exercise. That's what we need to bring to this equation. Any representation of value that's put in the hands of the people at the moment, that's based on a fiat backing, that is based on gold or anything that's a representation of value, is temporary, is a bridging solution. And please don't view it as anything but that. It's not a solution. All it would do is make this transitional period go faster, perhaps be easier. But in the end, we still have to stand up and present our embodiments in full knowledge that we are the value. And if we do it in enough numbers, what can they do? It's the Berlin Wall. At the moment, we're pushing on it. We just need to give it a really big shove, and we'll get there.
And again, I want to highlight, this is already in place. Right now, how money is created, right now, they monetize your embodiment. That's what your birth certificate bond is, a monetization of your embodiment. Without you, there's nothing backing anything. None of the paper, none of the gold, none of the silver. The gold, silver, right? If you needed some gold, let's say, because gold is really great for circuitry. Suppose I needed, 24 ounces of gold. My value, right, can go ahead and purchase that representation that people have associated with value of gold to use in my doing. So it's me. It's always been you, and it is you right now. Gold and silver and all of those things are just representations of you. They are trading and bartering you.
Here's a good example, real quick, Chris, before you go. The documentary "Our System, Our Structure, Our Illusion." I put it on my my blog, and this example they use, where they're talking about the very same thing, about how we are the money, and we the money has value because we collectively agree it has value. And the example, the illustration that he used was, for anybody that doesn't think the people are the value, imagine a situation where everybody stopped working, all of a sudden stopped going to work. How much value does that money have now? The value of those dollars now, to not be able to buy anything, goes away completely. That money collapses. There is no value. When we go back to work and we create goods and we create services and we do and we create, now all of a sudden currency is worth something. So I thought that was brilliant, and it's totally true. Because it's one of those things. You can't just make up a currency, bring it into a country, say this currency has value. They're going to look at you and say, well, no, it doesn't. Well, why not? So now all of a sudden you're getting into a situation where you realize that it's our collective beliefs that steer a lot of this. So if all of a sudden, when all of a sudden a lot of this information gets more attention on a mass scale, we have the power to do whatever we want to do. And we cannot be controlled when we are aware of what's going on, and that's where we're at right now. But go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Bob, I was just going to say, remember back in about November, remember the bond you were working on with the Federal Reserve?
Yes.
You came really close to getting that over the line.
Yes. Very, very.
Okay. Here we are, 8 months later. We're actually back in that same position with one difference. Now there's a couple of 100,000 Bobs out there who know their value and are prepared to do same. And as Brian just said, we act in large enough numbers. We act, particularly if we act as one. If we all stood up and did this, if everybody did this, the system can't do anything but shift. We are the irresistible force. That was the whole point of the Berlin Wall coming down. The authorities in East Berlin and West Berlin, they knew the game was up. They knew the people had called their bluff, that it was just a game that was being played. The people called the bluff, and they walked through that wall like it wasn't there. And that is how it's actually going to be in the end here. In the end, if enough of us act, what can they do?
For the people who don't understand how the bond works...
Chris just going transformer, or is it at my end?
That was at your end, I think, because it came
You're
through.
fine on me at my end.
You're not uploading videos again, are you, Lisa? Oh.
No.
No. There you go.
No.
Continue,
I'm
Bob.
good. Sorry, it was all fine. Everybody else.
Yep.
No, for people are asking, how do you do that? And I'm going to explain how the bonding works. You create a bond or a promissory note, and once you create that and you sign your name to it, you've just created money. And your signature, right, you are backing it. It is your energy that is backing it. Now that bond, for whatever value or portion of units that you've made it for, is now a bonded note, which can be accepted as cash, because that's exactly what happens when you go for a mortgage. When you sign that promissory note, they deposit that note as cash. Do you understand? Where did it come from? It came from you. You signed it. It didn't have any value before you signed it. As soon as you signed it, it has value. They deposit it as cash, and then they trade the hell out of it. And how do you get that bond? You create it, Christine.
And
you
Bob
create
basically just looked at templates online and created his own.
Yeah.
He looked at what other people had done in the past and created one.
Yeah. In fact, the documentation Bob was working on was actually somewhat complex. But folks, when it gets down to it, in reality, what we should be able to do is to write a number on a piece of paper with some words, whatever words it needs, to actually just state this is a bond and sign it. It's almost a check is almost all you need to do.
Well, a check is exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
When you sign a check, it is a order or a demand for payment.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep. Now
go ahead, Chris.
The work that Scott Bartlett and Uwe Schaefer are doing at the moment bears precisely on this. And what they're uncovering is that when this is what they suspect is going on, and where they're looking for proof, and I think they've just about got it. When you go to get a mortgage, one of the first things they do is they monetize your signed application. And that is the document that they use through, they use a third party to actually monetize it and give them a check for the amount that you actually signed for. And they use that check to settle your house. Then they tell you...
That's whether they give you the mortgage or not.
Whether they give it to you or not, they'll actually get that money. because that's the game that they play. They'll take, because in addition to paying off the house, they also take it and sell it many more times over because it's got your signature on it, because your signature is where the value is. Then they say to you, the person who's bought, supposedly, unknowingly already paid for the house, they turn around and say, well, you now owe us $500,000 because you just bought a house. And you think you owe them that money. And then they go and play games again with the rest of the documentation that you signed. They monetize it, and you have to pay it back. And if you don't keep paying it back, they fraudulently take the house off you, despite the fact that you've signed 2 documents, paid it back probably 100 times over, yet they'll come and take it from you. And this is the depth of the way they're using this against us.
Here's another variable to add on top of that, is the only difference between going and getting a bond and getting fiat cash out of a bank and getting a loan is the fact that when you bond it, you're not going to pay any interest on it because it's not created as a loan, as a debt instrument. But here's the thing anyways, the system is so messed up that if you take that $50,000 that you got out of that bond and you take it and you put it in another bank, well, then they're going to do their fractional reserve lending on it, and they're going to lend out a minimum of 10 times that $50,000 amount. And they're going to lend that out in other areas and make interest off of that. So that's the big fallacy. Is the biggest illusion is that when you go to a bank and you get a loan, that there's actually some amount of money that's coming out of some vault from somewhere, which is absolutely not the case. It's just numbers that are created in a computer. So the only entity that has anything to lose in this, you're not getting anything for free because you're the value. The only entity that has anything to lose in this scenario is the bank that's no longer going to get the interest because it's not set up as a promissory note to be paid back with interest.
Yeah. There's an example, Brian. The country that Lisa and I live in has about, 22 million people, Lisa?
Yep.
About that? Okay. And every year there's 4 major banks, right? Between them, they make $16 billion profit out of doing business with 22 million people and probably doing business overseas as well. Now, how does that come about? How is that possible? And they can only do it by playing the games that Brian's describing. And this is these are the deceptive acts and practices that Heather cited in all the way through her documentation to actually foreclose through the UCC. Deceptive acts and practices. They sit in front of us and they lie there. Well, actually, no. The people sitting in front of us, they don't know any better. Okay? The managers and the lending officers, they don't know how the system works. Inside the banks, it's compartmentalized. It goes into special areas where it's monetized and dealt with. And these are areas that the people on the ground floor doing the lending to us don't know what goes on in there. They just don't know. And Uwe has confirmed this multiple times because he's got some contacts in the banks, and he says, what happens after because Uwe himself worked as if you like, an independent lending person, and he would go back to his bank contacts and say, well, what happens after we hand the applications to you? And he says, we hand them into this department. What happens in there? Well, I don't know. Well, it turns out what's going on in there is the applications are all being monetized. End of story. And this is why, when we present ourselves and say, we know what's going on, and you either accept my bond, right, or you're actually negating everything, because the entire banking system is based on the premise that our signatures to them represent our value, okay? What that means is that if they don't acknowledge the fact that what you just gave them has value, okay, then everything they're doing in the background is meaningless. So what is it, guys?
And Chris, I just want to make
it both ways.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Brian.
Okay.
I just wanted to say something to the people in the chat room. Whenever we do a show where something big is announced that has a huge energetic effect, the following week, the chat room is full of negative people. So I'm assuming that last week's show, when Heather came out, had a big impact, because the show me the money people are back, the I want it now, I want it yesterday, there's a lot of aggro, and there's a pattern. Well, I'm just pointing out the fact that there's a pattern. So for those of you who are in the chat room and trying to send love and light to all these people, thank you. Good job.
Yeah, look, guys, these are difficult concepts, and this is new. But my point here is the point I was actually getting to is, okay, Heather's working on her version of a bond. Okay, now if Heather disappeared tomorrow, we could still go ahead and start working on our own bonds and putting them to the banks. It's a question of doing it in numbers, because the banks will turn around and say, oh, my goodness, that's fraud. And you'll say, well, is it? Well, what is it you're doing? And why is it that you continue to do it, yet you won't accept my signature on this other piece of paper and place it as cash in the account that I've told you to put it in? All right?
The reason we haven't done anything with the bond yet is because there's a way to write them, which Heather's working on, that puts some boundaries on what they can do with it. So it's essentially if you're walking into a bank and saying, I'm prepared to deposit some of my value into this bank, but these are the things you can't do with it. Because otherwise, as Mark talked about this last week too, the way that they trade in these very private backdoor platforms and what they do with our value.
Yeah.
So putting boundaries on that, otherwise all we're doing is reinvigorating the system. And if you do get a chance, which you will, if you decide to go down this road, and this is the way it looks like to me, that we are going to get an opportunity with the bond that Heather is writing to go to a bank and say, I am prepared to deposit some of my value in this bank. I'm prepared to pay you a fee for acting as a transaction center and for your services of issuing me with a card or whatever it looks like. But do I want to go and do it for $10 billion or even $5 billion? Absolutely not.
No.
For the absolute minimum that I need in order to do what I want to do and need to do over the next 6 to 12 months, while we're in a transition period of getting people, organizations, vendors to embrace and adopt the IUV system. That's it. Minimum. Because
I
know that there are people out there who will go, okay, well, this is my bond. I'm just going to get $10 billion and I'm not going to worry about the IUV. I'm not going to worry about a transition into a new system. I'm not going to worry about any of that because I'm okay now. And that's fine. That's their choice. But it's not mine.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And the whole point of waiting for Heather is because she has that experience and put those restraints in place, because it's really important to stop them from monetizing it, because they'll go and do the same thing. So yes, we could write our own bonds, and Heather has the experience and should be able to do it in a far more efficient way than we could. We could eventually put something together that would work, but it would be trial and error, and of course there's a failure rate associated with that. But
there's
what
also
Lisa
the
said is
influx of once that comes out is that
not putting too much value back. Not putting too much value back in the system is really, really, really important. It's done by what you would call absolute necessity. It's to stop guys with guns coming around and kicking you out of your house, for instance.
But the thing that will happen, the more people that become aware of their own value, the more people that become aware of how the system actually works, who's actually going to go into a bank for a loan? Really? Because you know that the bank has nothing to loan you. So, the more people that become aware, the less people are going to basically beg the bank for money, because they'll know that they are the creditors.
Yeah. In fact, what it does, if we did it in enough numbers, we would actually convert the banking system from being what it is into being our transaction system.
Exactly.
If everybody did.
Which is what they're meant to be.
Yeah, it is. It is. It would work. But it all gets back to doing it in great enough numbers, which means, once this process starts, is getting the information out there as quickly as possible about the shift that's taking place. But again, based on the responses that we have where people sort of struggle with the concept of value, it's a much bigger communications issue to introduce this to people who've never heard anything about all of this in their lives. And well, we've got quite a task ahead of us, folks. Quite a task.
I feel it's important right now, if I can, real quick. There's a couple of things I want to say, just based on some of the things that are coming up in the chat room. First of all, what's happening right now is a system that has been designed for control and greed and manipulation and corruption for the last hundreds of years, being planned for probably much longer than that. Some would argue thousands. But as far as banking goes, the last few hundred years at least. It's being unwound right now. It's being unbound. It's like a rubber band ball or a ball of yarn. It's being untied string by string. The options are you can sit back and you can do nothing, or you can be a part of a plan to implement great change for yourself personally, and for humanity. How do you want it to be? This isn't about some big master plan that's supposed to be perfect for everybody. It's supposed to create the freedom that allows people to create for themselves what's going to work best for them. Doesn't have to be one streamlined approach. It can be many, depending on what people desire to manifest in their lives. So what's being created right now are a set of options. The foundation is being laid to allow people the opportunity to choose what they want, to make them happy, to make them feel fulfilled so they can thrive in whatever way that looks best for them. So a lot of the negativity that comes up right now is, people saying, but there's, people struggling, and there's, people are losing their homes and they got to eat and all these things. And I get it. I've dedicated my life to service. I do these radio shows to help spread whatever message or whatever new updates are available, because I want to play a part in making a difference. And I realize that most of the people that are listening to this call, most of the people that are in the chat room, they feel the exact same way, but they're empathic and they feel so much suffering from others, and I understand that. My fiance, very empathic. She feels the emotions of so many, and I understand that hurts sometimes. But I want to read something from a blog post I put out today that speaks to that a little bit, just as a segue to wherever it is that we're going in the next part. Just real quickly, if I can. I wrote, as the absolute plan is perfect in all its glory, so too is the timing of events unfolding. There is nothing that is behind schedule. The schedule is right on track. All things are in perfect alignment at all times. Acceptance of this universal truth is the key to happiness and inner peace. To all those who are struggling, send them love. Let them know that you care. Let them know that you love them and that you are there for them. Hold a space that sings softly into their ear that everything will be okay. Help them if you are in a position to do so. Support them in any way that you can. But I implore you, do not take on their burden, as it is not yours to take. For to take on the suffering of another is to rob them of an experience of their own design, manufactured for their own soul growth. And as the last remaining experiences of suffering are purged, so too is the cosmic signal given for the launch into an era of peace and prosperity. I felt that needed to be said because there is we all know we're all doing this because we realize that the poverty level in the world is beyond the level of acceptance based on how many resources that the planet has for the disposal for all souls, not just the select few. So we understand, to all of those people that are making comments about people suffering, believe me, we get it. And that's why we're doing what we're doing, to create a space that will allow some of these problems that plague our world now to be a part of the past and not be a part of our future. So I just wanted to read that part.
We also just came back from spending time in a third world country. I mean, we saw it firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, we've got to fix our problems first, and if we fix our problems, then the rest will rapidly follow. Now, there's a Lisa, I just posted Uwe's website in the Skype chat here, if you could put that into the chat room. If people haven't seen the videos on the home page, there's some really detailed explanations of how the banks actually do what we've described they're doing, which is an exact if you like, parallel to the bond process that we're actually talking about. So that will help your understanding of what the banking system's actually doing. And they're doing really great work. This is Uwe Schaefer and Scott Bartle working on this. And the ultimate aspect of this is us actually expressing our free will by standing. And we don't, there's a lot of places in the world where there's a lot of people in the streets, and it's turning to be, potentially quite violent, and it is turning violent a bit here and there, and that's an expression of exerting your free will. But going to a bank with a bond is like putting a knife into the heart of the beast and explaining to them, exactly what's going on. And it's in the end, it will actually be a numbers game, as it usually is. But when
apparently
this goes viral,
now, people have been asking in the chat room, have any of us ever done this? Yes, I have. As a matter of fact, that's how I became aware of the One People's Trust. I was literally going into the bank with a promissory note that I bonded with my signature to buy a car. And they gave me a real hard time with it, but as they kept testing me, as I kept demonstrating that I understood how the banking system worked, they became very, very cooperative. And now I'm dealing with the heads of the bank, the presidents and the chief executive officers of these banks. And when I was dealing with them, they knew exactly what I was doing and tried very, very hard to get my promissory note through. And then they said that there's something happening with your birth certificate bond. It's not coming back. And that's when I found out that all of a sudden these bonds were no longer being used or not longer being traded. What happened to them? They were gone. They were not out of the system. You couldn't access them anymore. And I was questioning what happened to all of the birth certificate bonds. And that's when I found the One People's Trust, that they had actually foreclosed on that whole system, and none of those trades were going through anymore. So here we are, back, like Chris said, back around circle. And I don't know if you wanted me to bring this up, but we actually have some projects that we're going to test this on. And so that we can actually see and demonstrate how this can be done. And they're not small projects. Do we want to get into that, Lisa?
Yeah, sure.
We have 3 projects that we want to start, and using all of the now tools that we have and those that are yet to come as they present themselves in order to purchase, set up what we would call harmony or wellness centers in 3 different locations around the globe. And we're going to do it in the new way. So anybody who resonates, there's going to be a property in Australia, one in Morocco, and one right here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Bob, you just need to clarify something, though. People seem to think that with what you said, that the OPPT somehow took control of the birth certificate bonds. No, they put the banks in a position where they couldn't trade them anymore. It's more accurate, right?
Exactly.
That's accurate. Yeah. What Bob was doing was, in fact, a bond against his birth certificate account, which is the way the old system actually was. One aspect of the old system was working. So what he was trying to do was absolutely legitimate. And in fact, whenever you go to, for instance, a court, if you sign some sort of court document and they monetize it, that's the account they were drawing it against. Now, we're not entirely sure exactly whether that's all still going on because of the changes that have happened inside the system due to the work of the trustees. But when you get back to the absolute situation of who on this planet represents the value in this entire civilization, it's the people. And it always was the people. As Bob said, if everyone stopped, no, I think Brian said, if everyone stopped working, what happens though? If we just stopped working and stood still, we'd all perish. The whole planet would go to hell in a handbasket. We start working again, and all of a sudden everything's thriving. We never needed money. money only ever represents slavery. In fact, this entire effort with the One People's Trust is actually not about money. It's actually about freedom. And we've heard this particular view put many times before, and I just want to remind everybody that everyone has problems now in the real world, day to day. We know that, you know that, that's completely obvious. But looking at the bigger picture, this is about long term, this is about our freedom. It's getting to that place where the majority of people understand what's going on and are prepared to stand in their own free will, and then the system will shift so quickly, it will seem like the twinkling of an eye. It'll seem like the Berlin Wall. It'll just come down all around us, and that's going to be spectacular. And we're sitting here right in the middle of that, the tip of the spear, if you like. And we've just got to keep working at it, folks, because we're very close now. And as I said, the difference between now and 8 months ago when Bob was doing it was the sheer number of people who are on that page and who can do this now. There's so many Chase Bennies out there, and Bob Wright's out there, and Brian Kelly's out there, and all the rest of it. You don't think the banks won't actually fall over in shock when these requests start coming through? They will, and they know it's coming. They listen to these broadcasts very closely to gauge what's coming, and they know all about this. And there's actually one thing I'd like to throw in here. We're talking about representations of value being removed from our system. I'd like to anticipate another conversation in next week's show based on the other representation of value that I want completely wiped out of our society, and that's called politicians, our representatives inside the political system. Okay? That has to go as well. No more representation by another person, especially the way that we currently do it. Completely corruptible. So that representation has to go as well. No. They're representing the people who paid for their election campaign. That's what they represent. So it's another deceptive act that they have to be brought to book for that, and it's actually written into the CVAC specifications. And that's another whole conversation we need to have, because we have the technology to actually administer ourselves. I won't use the word rule or govern. We can administer ourselves very nicely using essentially a very simple committee system, which is what the CVAC describes, without any representations required, because we have the technology to directly communicate our will, our vote, to the people who are serving us on those committees. I'm choosing my words very carefully there, because there is no line of control or authority from those committees to the people. It is service in our direction that sort of structure represents, and that's what the CVACs describe. Now, we don't have to use the exact specifications that Heather put up there, but they're a pretty damn good starting point. And I'd like to start that conversation further down the track as well. But let's round up the conversation with about the banking situation here with anything that Brian, Bob, and Lisa want to put in at this point.
Sorry, somebody in the chat room is just asking me could you please go back to talking about the 3 test projects, please?
Oh.
Yes, we can
Yep.
do that. Did you want to say something first, Brian?
No, that's where I was hoping it was going to go. I know how much everybody wants answers on all the the banking stuff, and I think that on a lot of levels, the next couple of weeks are going to be very telling. I mean, our timelines for what we're doing for these potential projects. I mean, when we were out there in Morocco, that's kind of where, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, when we were out there, we were talking about setting up these communities. As far as at least the one in Morocco, that was the first time it had popped up as an idea, and it kind of evolved from there. And I'm super excited about it because, I mean, think about it's not the time people talk about creating sustainable communities that can house, multiple families, like condos and apartments with access to sustainable gardening projects, to healing centers with new technology and utilizing energy type healing like Reiki or any of the other thriving healing modalities from around the world. And the options for what you can do in a situation like that are absolutely limitless, where ultimately you're coming up with a community that relies very little on the old structure and the old way that things have been set up in the past. So what you can do there is, left to your imagination. It's absolutely limitless. I actually published an article about an hour ago. It's John Rappaport talking about how ultimately the fall of the cabal is the element that's going to make that happen is the fact that they have no way of predicting. Did I lose everyone?
No,
you're good.
Radio land. They have no way of predicting what the capacity of the human imagination. And our imaginations right now are running wild. And when you can't put that into a program and a logarithm and determine where it's going to be at some future time, whether it be a month, 6 months, or 6 years into the future, there's not a whole lot that you can do to disrupt it, because it comes from a place that is absolutely unpredictable. And this project in Morocco and in Australia and in Pennsylvania are incredible illustrations of that coming to pass, coming to fruition. Just a few of so many, and a total freedom to create it with an absolute endless amount of possibilities. So that's my understanding of it. I'm sure that Bob with Pennsylvania and Lisa, what she knows about it, and Chris with your take, there's probably a lot more you can add. But I'm freaking excited.
Oh, and this is huge. This is an example for the world. And people are asking in the chat room, will there be one here? Will there be one there? Everywhere. And anyone who wants to start one, I encourage you to go ahead and do it. Start doing. Don't wait. We're not waiting for all the tools to come forward. We're using all of what we have now is enough. And this whole idea of waiting, I've learned, is not productive for manifesting. You've really got to put thought, word, and action in motion. Yeah,
you're absolutely right, Bob. There has to be action to follow up the thought. The thought creates the energetic space. The action fills it. That's the way it seems to work down here, because if you just have the thought but don't act on it, really nothing much happens most of the time.
The comments, we can't do it without resources. It doesn't cost you a thing to dream, and it doesn't cost you a thing to imagine. It doesn't cost you a thing to go and do a search for properties that are appropriate online. You're probably already paying for your internet, so there are some things that it doesn't cost anything to do.
See, here's the problem, and I'm going to do my best to try to keep this extremely positive, because that's the only way I know how to do things. For anybody that's ever started a business before, you don't raise the money first. Any entrepreneur knows, you start building the project and you write your business plan, you make your contacts, you build your board of directors, you set up the foundation to build that business. And when you built a big enough, a good enough strategy that shows in the old paradigm profitability, then you can go out and solicit to angel investors or venture capitalists. If you were to go to one of those groups that has money, like that show Shark Tank, and you just said, "Well, I want to start a building project for a sustainable community," and they're going to say, "Okay, what have you done so far?" And you're going to say, "Well, I haven't had the resources, so I haven't done anything." They're going to laugh you right out of that room, and you're right where you were before you went in there, penniless. So it doesn't take money to be able to start doing these things. You got to build it. When you build it, they will come. So start making the connections for all the things that you want to do right now. Start dreaming. Set an intention, and then set the intention, and then follow the energetic trail. Pick up the phone. Start making contacts with people that share your vision and collaborate with them. And then when you're excited about something because you put so much thought and emotion into it, and you can excite other people about it, then you attract energy and people to your projects to allow those things to come into being real. So don't let any amount of or lack thereof or perceived lack thereof of finances or resources stop you from dreaming. Dream now. We all set the intention of going to Africa. We didn't have the money per se. We didn't know how to do it. Some of us had jobs, but we all knew we needed to be in Africa, and we went there. We did the same thing when we went to the desert. We didn't have hotel accommodations. We didn't have bus tickets. We had no idea where we were going to stay. We didn't know where we were going to eat. We didn't know where we were going to be. We set the intention to go to the desert. We went there. The energetic trail laid out in front of us like a gold carpet. We walked down it, and we let the universe provide for the things that we needed to make it all possible. Everybody has the ability inside of them to do that now. All you have to do is have faith that the universe will conspire to set things up that will allow you to dream and live your dream, and everything will fall into place exactly like you want it to, or not necessarily exactly like you want it to, some better way you could have never possibly imagined in the beginning.
OPPT was a great example of that, and I mention this over and over again. When Heather foreclosed on the system, they said, good luck in getting the world to find out about this. You don't have the resources to inform the world about this. There's going to be a media blackout on all of it. No one's ever going to know.
Mm-hmm.
With no resources.
Look where we are now.
Look at where we are now.
Yep. Now, everything that's happened up to this point has been on zero budget.
On zero budget.
What's your
And
salary?
she did make appointments, and she did have discussions with people in the mainstream media, and they all went, nope, not touching it. And along comes a couple of bloggers and internet radio show hosts, and that's all it took.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've got Trevor Osborne on the line. Trevor's a really dear friend in Australia, and I had a really great conversation with him the other day, and he talked about living this new paradigm, which he's been doing for quite some time. And if you could share part of that story, Trevor, about your 13 years experience in living in that magical new paradigm way.
Yes, can you hear me, Bob? Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine.
Great, thank you very much. And I've been following along with the show, and it's brilliant, and it's right in my avenue of experience, and I'm so excited about this because this is what I've been waiting for years. Before I go into what you just mentioned, Bob, I'd just like to give a couple of principles, I think, which are important, and I think this will help people understand what's going on, because people are confused because they're mixing the two realities together as one, and they're not. They're separate. What we talk about as third density, or the paradigm we've just currently been in, is a way of life. It is a particular reality that we all created collectively. But what we're on about now is creating a whole new reality, which is a whole set of new rules, if you like, or a set of principles upon which it will be based. And what you guys have just been talking about, and particularly what happened in Morocco, was absolutely magical, because that is the system. That is the system we're moving into. What you said, we can do everything we want to do in that principle, just by following your excitement and following your passion, and just stepping out there and building the road as you travel. Now, this is so important, because if you try to mix the two together, it's like playing a game of golf on a football field with a football and trying to play golf. You know, they don't mix. They're two separate games, and they're both valid unto themselves. You know, the old 3D game, the third density game, is valid. You know, it's got us to where we are now. We should not judge it as being something negative or whatever, because it's brought us here, and it's been our soul experience. We all chose to live this and to bring us to where we are now. But the time is now in a shift. We are actually transitional between the two realities.
Hey, Trevor. Oh, sorry, I thought you were done with your thought. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah, I was saying we're in this transitional stage, so it's about building a bridge, right? So, but before we build a bridge, we've got to know where we're building the bridge to. So, from my perspective, it is about let's identify what it is we're going to create. and this is what I've been doing. Somebody asked me what do you call yourself, and I gave myself a title, and I called myself a paradigm architect. That's what I've been doing for 30 odd years. I put together a list of principles upon which this new system can be based. I'm saying it will be based. It's up to everybody, obviously. But this is the way I've seen it. And the way I operate, I connect into the collective reality, our collective consciousness. And in doing that, I'm able to access what where we're heading. And this helps me to understand from a higher perspective of what it is we're doing and where we're going. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was muted. Absolutely.
Right.
Sure does.
I was muted too.
Okay. Now, getting back to what Bob was saying, I spent all these years traveling and doing stuff. Now, what happened? I studied the Bashar material for about 3 years. I listened to every recording I could get. This is back in the late 80s. And they were on cassette tapes in those days. And I counted them up one day. There was 310 sessions. Each had 2 tapes. I listened to all of those. I listened to many of them several times over, because Bashar talks about the system into which we're going, which is the system they're coming out of, because they're shifting from 4th density to 5th density. We're shifting from 3rd density to 4th density. Now, each of these densities have a set of principles upon which the reality is based. Now, once you understand what those principles are, it all makes perfect sense, and it's so simple. It's so simple, and there are certain principles which are key. One of them is called synchronicity. Now, we hear about this synchronicity. What is it? Now, there's a definition of what synchronicity is, and it is basically the opposite of Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law is anything can go wrong will go wrong. The positive side of that is everything which can go right will go right. And that's where things lead you to. Now, what you guys did in Morocco is exactly that. Now, when you're on that path, then that's the way it works. Now, I think the important thing is what you did in Morocco. You created a collective bubble, a collective reality bubble. And so in that bubble, you literally were in 4th density. You were living it, being it, and experiencing it. Now, this is so key, and this is what I would love you guys to do more than anything, is to start focusing on that more and more and more, because in these centers that I see we can create, we can start to learn how to do that and teach people how to do that, and in those bubbles, because we can create those bubbles in these new places. Now, when I say a bubble, it is in a sense important initially anyway to isolate yourself to some degree. Now, when you went to the desert, you isolated yourself from the 3D reality, much greater than you were when you're in the city. So in doing that, you are able then to access all the things that go along with 4D, the 4th density reality. And we can do the same thing when we get into these centers. And in doing so, magic will happen all the time. And we will become so creative, and you're then able to access your higher self, your higher guidance, very easily and almost on a constant basis, really. And from that, I believe we will start creating the new system. It's not about getting rid of the old system. That'll happen anyway. So it's like jumping off a sinking ship. Until you've got your lifeboats launched, there's no point in jumping off the ship getting drowned. You need
Trevor,
to have...
I've always seen this as being a case of where we're actually rebuilding the ship under sail. Is another way of looking at it, and we can build something new, and we can use some of the bits of the old, and exactly. The end result will be what we need. Yes.
It's a matter of accessing the resources and transferring them into the new system, and that's what we are going to be doing, and we can do, and we can do it by several ways. If Heather or anybody else sets up an interim system which can help us to do that, great. But we don't even need to do that, because doing what you guys are doing in Morocco is the way it works. I did that for a number of years. I had no income, and I traveled the world. I went around the world 4 times, and I had the most amazing experiences. And some of those, I mean,
on no income.
On no income, yeah. And I did have a credit card at one stage, and I'm just this is the way this particular experience happened. This is in 1994. I had this desire to go to the United States. I'd already met a lady who I resonated with, and she lived in Missouri, or Missouri, as they call it when you go there. And I had $1,200 left on my credit card before it maxed out. And I decided I was going to go there, and I figured out probably that $1,200 made me last me a month. And I thought, well, I'll go over there. I already had the ticket to go over there, and I thought, well, if when it runs out, my credit card runs out, I'll just come home. So I went there on the 4th of April. I left there on the 20th of August and brought this lady friend back with me to New Zealand. We spent a week in New Zealand using the credit card, and then flew to Melbourne, where I had a car. We drove up and around the Gold Coast and up through the east coast of Australia for 6 weeks. I put her on the plane on the 4th of October and said goodbye, and I went to the ATM to get some more money out, and they said, sorry, you're up to your limit. Now, how did that happen? Now, I don't know. When I got my statement, while I overseas, you don't get a statement. You don't really know what your balance is or anything else. So I just thought, oh, well, if it runs out, I just can't go home. And I just trusted it and did that. And when I finally got my statement, 90% of the transactions I did didn't appear for some reason. And I had no idea who they were. And it's like, okay, the people who needed the money got the money. The ones that didn't really need it didn't get it. And that was the way the universe operated at that particular time. From there on, it changed. But that will give you one example of how things can happen. The universe will provide you with what you need when you need it, as long as you're in that mode, and following your path, following your excitement, living your dream, and doing what it is you want to do.
Trev, I just wanted to make a comment on something that you said, because even though it's probably more of a conversation for tomorrow's show, but all of this talk of densities and dimensions, 3D, 4D, 5D, and what each one looks like and feels like, and what you're capable of in each one, over recent months, have become less and less, able to even resonate with any of that. I mean, I use the terms 3D and 5D simply as a language shortcut, in a way. When I say 3D, I mean physical and practical. When I say 5D, I mean more expanded. And that's all they are for me, is just language shortcuts. They're not what they used to be, which is a description
all right.
of...
Do you understand what I was saying about you being in Morocco as being a new reality?
But it didn't... I don't want anyone to get the impression that it was like we stepped out of one reality into another.
No. You
expanded the reality that we were in.
Yes, exactly. But it's different. It's different, isn't it? And you have a different mindset, and the energy is different. Your thoughts and ideas and the way you operate, you just trust and you move forward. I call it building the road as you travel. It's a way of, when you're on that path, it's so easy. It's so easy and effortless and exciting and fun. And you have a ball.
Well, I think a lot of it...
And all these amazing things happen.
I think a lot of it is semantics, with language. Because, one could easily argue that when you're talking about different dimensions, that in each dimension you have a higher or lower degree of your sense of expansion and awareness. And when we were in Morocco, yeah, absolutely. Did we feel more expanded? Did anybody read my article I put together on my blog? I mean, yeah, that's exactly how I felt. Did I feel more aware? Yeah, absolutely. Was there things that were happening inside of me that I absolutely just could not use words to explain? Yeah, that would also be an understatement. And when you're in that space, when you realize that there's so much more to the world than how you might perceive it at any given moment, well, then you unlock the opportunity to experience miracles in your everyday life. Bob's walking.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, there are changes that took place in all 9 of us that went out to the desert that are permanent. We haven't. How can I put it? It's like we all now have a new operating system.
Yeah.
Yes, well, it is. And I thank you, Lisa, for that, because that's what it is. Each density has its own operating system. The operating system we had in 3D is a limiting system. It's designed by, whether it's consciously designed or unconsciously, I don't know. It was designed to keep us limited. You look at every system we have, it keeps us limited. Look at the energy system, look at the educational systems. All the systems we have, they're all designed to keep us limited. The 4D system is the opposite. It is designed to allow you to expand and become more creative and less limiting.
Sorry, I just thought of something. But can anyone tell me whether the OPPT-11 are back from Ethiopia yet? Does anyone know? Or have they been caught by the CIA?
No, didn't Neil Keenan round you all up and take you down to the Indonesian Prime Minister or something? Wasn't that the deal?
Well, you must have been talking about different people.
Of course they were.
It's not
fictional people. Fictional people. That was all highly amusing, actually.
It was our straw men. It was our straw men they were after. They got Sorry.
We shouldn't distract from Trevor because there's more to tell for sure.
I'd just like to come on to these centres, and I see these as also as an interim thing, so we can learn how we put this new system together, because it's like a new game. It's all very well learning the rules and having bits and pieces of it, but practicing the game. You guys in America don't understand cricket. Now, we could give you a book which describes how you play cricket, and you look at it and you get some idea. But you come over here and watch a game of cricket, and then practice the skills of playing the cricket. How you use the bat, and how you bowl, and how you do all the things, all the skills of playing cricket. Then that's what we're talking about in these centres, is learning the skills. And it's not really learning, it's remembering, because they're natural to us. It's our natural way of being. It is our first way of being, because we're talking about a second nature, which is in the 3D world is the second nature. The first nature is actually the way we're talking about now, which is being in love and light and in peace and harmony. So it's remembering that and getting back into that and trusting that we are provided for, and you get what you need when you need it, no more, no less. This is the interesting thing. It's not so much about what you want, it's what you need. And you need whatever it is you need, be who you are and what you're doing at any particular moment. When you change that, then you will get whatever you need to do that. For example, if somebody's just being a mum and a mother, and her husband's being the father, and they're just interested in bringing up their kids, they will get what they need to do that. But if somebody's got this big project they want to do, then they move into that. They will be provided with the resources to do that when they step out and start doing it. So what I'm proposing is that we start doing that with these properties. I've identified one property on the east coast of New South Wales, actually just on the hinterland, which is, I see as an ideal property that we could start. I'm proposing anybody who's interested that we do what you all guys did about going to Morocco. Let's just go there, and with the idea of either acquiring this property or something like it, which may be even better, and see where it takes us, and see what happens. I know the gentleman who owns the property. Actually, I've been there. In fact, I've got a video which I put together, which is on YouTube now, which I can share the details with. In fact, I think I've given it to Lisa and Bob anyway, so you can have a look at it. And you'll see the magic of this place. This guy's I think he's 80, he might even be 90 now. He's got no relatives, as I understand it, and he's got the place up for sale. He wants $3.5 million for it. But who knows? We might go there. He might love what we want to do, and he might say, "Come in and join us," or "Have it," or whatever. You know, the universe can provide whatever you need when you need it. And that's the whole key. And I think this is the time now we can start doing those things, and then so you don't necessarily need the money. You know, some benefactor might love what you're doing and donate.
Trevor, I was thinking that it would, whether it's the IUV website or Absolute Data or a whole different website, that could actually list a lot of the projects that people are interested in doing, whether it's community projects like this or whether it's technology ones or whatever, and creating a space online where people can go to and see if there are any projects that they would be interested in joining, or maybe it'll actually spark their own imagination to come up with their own projects, and a place where people can come together.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great idea. But I think it's important that we, what you created was a collective bubble there when you got together. And that's so powerful. You can only do so much on your own. If if I went to that property in New South Wales, there's only so much energy. If a group of us go there with all the same ideas and thoughts and feelings, that energy is exponentially much greater and is much more powerful. So I believe we can do things in that manner.
Okay, Trevor, is there somewhere that people can get in touch with you if they're interested in following up on this for now?
Yes, I've got a website which it's got my email address in there. The website is world-harmony.com. Just world with a hyphen, harmony.com. And my email address actually is trevor@world-harmony.com.
Okay, I'll get those in the chat room in a minute. We do need to move on and take some calls, though. Was there anything else you wanted to say before we do that?
Heaps, but that'll keep.
Trevor, if you have a link where people can take a look and see what the property looks like.
Yes, I did provide that to you earlier.
Let me wait. Maybe I can pull it up.
Actually, my computer's not behaving itself, so I can't bring up any more pages at the moment.
Okay, let me just
to get the addresses.
I've got them all here actually. So if you want to post these, you can. I'll just put them in the chat box here for you. And these are two other YouTube videos too, which one is in a glider just circling Mount Warning, which is the area it's in, and another one in the district, flying over the district, which gives you, it's such a beautiful area. And do you know it, Lisa? Have you been up there? That area around Mount Warning?
I think. Are you muted, Lisa?
No, she may have dropped out. She's silent just at the moment, Trevor. So press on.
Yeah. Do you know where I mean, Chris?
Actually, no, I don't. Okay.
Okay.
I just dropped in the chat room, and that one site where you can look up the property and there's some pictures. I'll copy these YouTube links as well.
Trevor, we once spoke of some property you were working with potentially in New Zealand.
Yes.
Is that a separate issue or something that could be involved in this?
It's the next stage, Chris. What I envisaged is actually creating a miniature version of the new world that we want to, a working model, as it were, of the new civilization that we want to create. And this property is about 20,000 acres or so. It's owned by the Maori people. They brought me there, and they have their folklore where they believe this land, and they've set it aside. There's nobody lives on it. They've set it aside for this purpose. I went there and told them my dream, and after 5 days, as I was leaving, they said, "What took you so long to get here? We've been waiting for you. This is our dream. This is what we want to be doing."
Yeah.
So it's about setting that up as a miniature version of, and that's bringing in the new technologies, or everything we have in the new paradigm. And
you might actually, Trevor, you might actually touch on that, because I know you've been working very hard kind of networking around different groups with sort of access and prototypes and plans for new technology, which definitely plays into this.
Yeah. Well, of course, part of the new paradigm is new technology. The old system was designed, as I said, to keep us limited. And the new technologies are unlimiting. And one of them is a new communication system that doesn't require, it allows you to communicate anywhere in the universe instantaneously with infinite bandwidth. And it does not require any satellites, any telecoms, anything. It's direct from A to B or A to Z, anyone. And it is a technology which has already been developed. The prototypes have been built. They need a few $100,000 to develop them. My idea was initially to build enough for all of us to be able to communicate securely. It's totally secure, because the way it works is that the communication goes from the physical reality to the non-physical and back into the physical again. And that's how it communicates anywhere and everywhere. You could be down a mine 2 miles deep, and you can still communicate, because space and time don't come into it. So that's one system. Of course, we've heard about free energy developments. Most of them are bogus, and most of them, people who do these believe they've got what it is, but they're not. They don't test out. But there are some real ones, and we are in contact with people who have these, and we have the technology. We hadn't had the resources to do that, so that's another focus we can be doing, is getting these, because they don't belong in the old paradigm. They belong in the new paradigm. So
because apart from energy, there'd be transport technologies alongside
that'll go along with it. Yeah. Well, anti-gravity will be. Yeah, anti-gravity will be part of the new energy system. This is part and parcel. So we won't need roads in the new system. So this new property won't have roads. They'll have paths, and it'll be a park-like environment. It'll be made up of a network of villages which interact, so that everybody knows each other in the village personally, that they interact. Actually, the internet is a very good model of the new paradigm. It's a networking system where everything interconnects, but is not controlled. It is self-regulating. It is self-sustaining. It operates by itself. It's not controlled, and nobody controls the internet. There are parts of it that get controlled, yes, but if one part falls apart, the other one, the rest of it takes over. So it's a system like that. So everything's based on networking. So there's no hierarchy. It is a collection of small groups. It's hubs. It's
a collection of collections.
Yes, exactly.
The easiest way to think of it, or a collection of collectives. And certainly you watch the way that Skype chat rooms propagate new chat rooms, and that's exactly the model we're talking about. And it's already happening. It's just happening with current technology.
Yes.
It's not all that obvious. It's somewhat subtle, but it's exactly the same process you refer to, which is the strawberry patch energy model, which you might like to explain to people, actually, because it's quite pivotal. And when you start to work in this collective fashion, it becomes the natural mode. So, describe that.
It's a very good model, isn't it? I was given this in a dream or something. I don't know. It just came to me. It's really the way the new system operates, and I call it the strawberry patch model. And if any of you have ever grown strawberries, you'll know what I'm talking about. They spread. So after a while, after they've established, they put these runners out, which run along the ground, and every few inches, a node develops on the stem, and that node develops roots and leaves, and so the roots go down the ground. And as that little new plant is developing, it's being supported by the parent plant, as it were. But eventually it becomes independent. You could actually cut the stem and it'll survive and it'll live and it'll grow. But nature doesn't do that. It stays connected. Now, the beauty of that is, you imagine if you had an acre of land and you put in one strawberry plant and you let it grow and it spread over the whole acre, then every plant is connected to every other plant through those runners. And the nourishment, and this is the beauty of it, the nourishment simply flows where it's needed. So if one plant in the patch is having its roots chewed away by some grubs, it doesn't die. It just draws on the energy through these runners, so stolons as they're called. And then the grub moves on, and then that plant then will redevelop its roots and grow. Now, in another way, if a plant has got surplus energy, it will put it out, surplus nourishment. So it's growing, but it doesn't need fruit. Another plant might have some fruit and it requires extra nourishment. It can draw on from the patch. So this is the way the new system works. The nourishment or the energy or the resources simply go where they're needed. They're shared, and you only get what you need and when you need it, no more, no less. So there's no surpluses and there's no scarcities.
Yeah, it's in balance at all times.
It's in balance. It's in perfect balance, and you don't have to orchestrate it. It's self-organizing, and this is the beauty of it. It's self-organizing.
Yeah.
So we don't
just adjusts
need
itself. Yeah.
Yes, it does, and that's the new model. And that's where we're heading. And what all the guys, all of you who went to Morocco experienced was that collective bubble where you actually created that yourselves. And I don't know, Brian or Bob, were you aware of the collective consciousness in that group as a separate entity, as it were?
Well, it depends on. Yeah, I don't know how collective consciousness can be a separate entity, but
it's.
Did it appear like we, as far as when we were there, did we have many moments where we felt that we were operating from a group consciousness? Absolutely.
Yes, that's what I mean. It's like the flock of birds, you know. They all move together. You don't get one go and then another one follows. They all move together, and that's the collective consciousness. So you get that when you get this bubble, and so there's a power within that. You're still all individuals, in fact, even more so than you were previously. But there's also this coordination between this collective consciousness, which is magical.
Yeah.
Okay, Trevor, Chris, we do have a number of calls that we want to get to.
Yeah.
So if we can start.
I'm back, by the way. I did drop out for a while there, but I'm back.
Thanks, Lisa.
So thanks, Trevor.
My pleasure.
I did catch most of what you said, but unfortunately my internet is playing up. So.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Trevor. Always good to talk to you.
That's fine, Brian. Yeah, good. Nice talking with you, Brian.
Trevor, don't hang up, because some of the questions may be for you.
Okay, I'll just mute myself.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have area code 207.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Okay,
What's your name,
okay,
sorry?
so I'm sorry?
What's your name?
Jen.
Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
Hi. I just, I have a little bit of a unique situation. Why, I have an outstanding balance with a bank, and for that reason, that was kind of, I got disconnected from the banking system sort of by accident, because I went to open up an account somewhere else, and they refused me because of that outstanding balance. Now, first of all, why would they do that if they're going to be, why would they refuse anyone? You know, but, I mean,
you just wanted to open up a savings account with them?
I'm sorry?
Or were you just looking to open up a savings account with them, or were you asking for a credit account?
A checking account, and they said, well, we can't accept you because you have this outstanding balance from this other bank. And so I'm wondering, since I'm not affiliated with any bank at all, well, partially for that reason, how would the bond situation work for me, I guess?
But same as it does for anybody. You don't have to have a previous relationship with the bank to walk in there and offer to deposit your value.
As a matter
You're not
of fact,
asking them anything.
The bank that I was working with, that I did my the bank that I was sending my promissory note was not my bank. It was it was the bank of the car company. So you don't necessarily have to have a relationship with the bank in order to do this, or you don't have to have a bank account in order to do this.
Okay, because I thought it was, they would take it as cash and put it in your account, and then you'd have your debit card.
Or they can take it as cash and then give you a cashier's check.
Oh, okay. I don't really know a whole lot about the logistics of it because I haven't really done it in a long time. So, but thank you for that. That's helpful.
No problem.
No problem.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Quick and easy. Thanks, Jen. Area code 561.
Ooh.
Area
Hello?
code 561? Yes.
Yes, hello?
Hello.
Yes, that's you. What's your name?
That's me. Hi there, it's Jerry calling.
Hi,
I
Jerry.
keep popping up everywhere. Hi there. Yeah, the usual me. You inspired me, all of you, again, and you mentioned something today when you were talking about, us taking back our own power and everything. And I've been playing around with one of Andrew Bartz's revocations, and I've got a little take on that too, and it just really empowers me to chant it out. So I just wanted to share that with you. So, are you up for another poem by Jones?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go, Jerry.
It's reclamation of sovereign spirit authority. In this moment of now, I graciously call to all spiritual contracts which are both old and new, existing in past, present, and future dimensions from every time stream with no exceptions. I call to the elements of earth, fire, water, and air, and primary ancestor spirits of Earth Mother, please be aware that I summon you to create my spiritual court of equity to remove all contracts of financial slavery. I hereby announce to every community that I reclaim my sovereign spirit authority. I do not consent to rule by the privileged few. I choose who I be, and I do what I do. I remove and dissolve all spiritual contracts with primary banking families, and I remove all contacts to their crests and trusts, and I revoke all right used by their DNA-based kingships. I now choose the light. I repeat, I do not consent to rule by the few. I do not consent to this assumed rule. I do not consent to banking families' authority or their use of my life force energy. I use it in integrity. I hereby declare Earth Mother dominion for all my energy exchanges. This ain't just opinion. It is my birthright as sovereign spirit of Earth. I have had this right since the day of my birth. I demand instant repayment of all energy stolen. I declare this the end of all outside controlling. I am solely my own personal ward. I call for this all entered into Earth's Akashic record. Signed with love.
Well done once again, Jerry.
Yeah, I think we should take something like that, and actually, when you sit down to front the bank on this issue, read it out to them.
Yeah.
Physically read it out to them. They'll be head spinning.
How to freak out a banker.
That, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Actually, they could be a flash mob in themselves. Get a crowd at the front of a bank. Just,
There must be a whole lot of us chanting it out. Wouldn't that sound brilliant?
Well, what you could do is you could each make out really, really big checks, like those giant checks they give out as prizes.
For yourself?
Yeah.
For yourself, and you could do a flash mob dance in the front of the bank, and then all rush in and present them. That'd be fun.
All right, now my wheels are spinning. How do I get my hands on one of those big checks? Okay.
With a very big printer.
For
right?
anybody that's got a big check business out there, contact me, Brian Kelly's blog, gmail.com.
No, you just need a really big printer, Brian. You can all of the print shops have really big printers. You just need to do up a file, and away you go.
Okay. Thanks,
That's
Jerry.
It. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry. Well done.
Someone wrote in the chat room. Thank you, Jerry, very much.
All right.
Okay. We've got area code 303.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Yes. What's your name?
Hello. This is David. Can you hear me?
Sorry,
Yeah.
what was it? Not over the giggle.
This is David. Can you hear me?
Yes,
David.
I can now.
David, we can't hear you.
It's dropping off a little. I'm not sure on whose side. But I had one comment and two questions. First comment, I'm not surprised that you're talking about the healing centers that are coming about, and I've already started making the moves to go back to massage school, to go through a course called neural sculpting, which is about the neural plasticity and how do you change one nature, and also going through Qigong. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this manifests, and I'm really interested in stepping forward and participating. So I'm looking forward to see how this all comes about.
Oh, that's wonderful. And there's so much healing that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And
I've been also for several years now been playing with breaking, the old symbols, the old patterns. I'm currently working in the corporate world, and for me at this time it doesn't serve to part ways, because one, I'm having a lot of fun doing what I do, and the other is that I'm getting to re-entrain, accepting where I am at any given time, without getting lost in what the pretense of the world, the way that it appears, is. So
fun!
So I'm having a great time and getting to play on some really amazing levels. So the two questions that I had, one I don't think is going to be answered here, but I'm really curious about the common law system and what it sounds like we might be moving to, and this old legal system that we're moving out of, which was based in maritime law and has become a corporate law and contract law and that type of thing. So I don't know if there's someone out there that has that kind of acumen or can put that in layman's terms, but I'd really love to see, what all of that is about.
Well, look, if you go to Google and Google common law, you will find a massive and endless piles of references on common law, because common law isn't really written down. There are principles of common law, and it's practiced somewhat differently around the world, but essentially it's just a common sense method of dealing day to day with one another directly. It's person to person again. For instance, there's a move in the United States at the moment where there's a bunch of sheriffs have got together and they're going to start up a common law court, and they're going to actually start issuing writs. This is genuinely the people's court. And so I absolutely support your push to understand common law. As to exactly where you'd start, I would actually probably go to some of the law libraries and look up books on common law to begin with, if you were serious about this, and probably the older books. And there's another book about equity, because equity and common law go hand in hand. And you notice in Jerry's poem, she talked about courts of equity. Well, a court of equity is if you like, a higher court, a higher people's court, not where necessarily you settle disputes in terms of you owe me $20, but you have wronged me, you must cease and desist. And it's something, again, it's the grand jury type system is, if you like, it's like a derivative of equity courts. And there's a really old text on equity courts, which I'll find a link on equity from a book that was written about 100 years ago, which is sort of the Bible for equity. And I'll get it put up on the IEV website, because it's really interesting stuff. And if we go back to common law, we'll end up using equity courts. And the really interesting thing at the moment is that all of the courts have been railroaded to being commercial courts, and there's all sorts of shenanigans and nasty things going on and rules being broken right, left and center. But one thing that's left untouched and not talked about is that there are still equity courts in the system for use by the powers that were when they have disputes with each other. This is a very interesting thing. So it's still out there, equity, common law, And yeah, I'd go back to the older books you'd find in the law libraries, because that's where the cleanest information will be. And I'll get this. It's not that big or is it a big book? No, it might be a big download, so I'll handle that later. But particularly the book on equity, because that is a more sophisticated court where you can sort out more sophisticated problems, and it's something that you can form with a couple of other people.
Nice.
Okay, it's
nice.
by agreement. It's by agreement between people. This is all people's technology. This is old technology, and this is what we're going back to. Because universal law underlies all of it. Do no harm. It's very, very straightforward stuff in the end.
Fantastic. Yeah, I would definitely love to see that. The final question I had was, I'm wondering why symbols themselves aren't being talked a whole lot about within the IUV, because I have a lot of background in the Hermetic magic and those arenas. And for those who don't know Hermetic magic, that's what the Freemasons are playing with. That's what all the Crowley and Dion Fortune and these guys are playing with. What's happening behind the scenes in the Catholic Church, the Gnostics, Kabbalah. There are several other Eastern paths that basically work with the same thing, and they're all playing with it in all different ways. So these are really the systems, the system of symbols, which is a small part of 4D world that these people, don't want to go to the groups, but these people have been using to hijack the system, as it were, and redirect people's attention, and therefore their eternal essence or their energy, and that's what they've been drawing on. And if we could have a little more discussion about that, not right at the moment, and how did that hijacking happen? Because it's real, technically, it's brilliant, it's simple, and it's truly amazing what they did. But it needs to stop now, because enough is enough.
Agreed. And I think the symbols that have been used so far by Heather and the One People's Public Trust are significant if people want to look into them. The what looks like angel wings on the IUV, the eye with the circle, even the one that was used for the One People's Public Trust. I mean, there are people who looked at that and dissected it from sort of Illuminati symbology point of view. But Heather did go into an explanation of why she used what she used. And I've been fortunate enough to have an interview with Michael Tazarian and looked at a lot of his work. And he's very big on the symbology and the iconography. And the symbols themselves, he says, are incredibly positive and powerful, but they've been usurped and used essentially against our subconscious. And there's nothing wrong with the symbol of, say, the eye, for example.
Right.
When used with the proper intent, it's all about intent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, they've overlaid their use of symbology on our ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're learning and it's all coming to light, their use of symbology will be revealed as just another deception. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't use and understand symbols, because you only have to look at the value of branding around the commercial community to know how effective symbology is. And it's a great tool if used for the people, not against them. So.
Okay, guys, we're running out of time here. We're down to 8 minutes. So.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll jump off, let someone else get on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
David, calling in. Sorry. Trevor got on. Okay, just looking at all. I'm getting bombarded with messages from all different places. We've got probably time for one more call, and I know Chris has got a couple of announcements to make. So, area code 970.
Ooh. Hello, everyone. It's Katie.
Hi, Katie.
And Hi, everybody. Oh, my gosh. Okay, so I just want to clarify a few things. Ethan and I, we're on the same, and two other friends of ours, we're on the same page to create like a station of light or like a healing center, but it's just all encompassing, and it's home, right? So,
yep.
So we're all on the same page that, you know, going to get a mortgage and going to like make it a nonprofit and do all that stuff. Like we're not doing that. we're not using the old system to do any of that. We're going to do it completely new and completely different. Right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
That was my best, Chris. Yep.
And you did it well. Thank you, Bob. Well delivered.
Oh, God, it's so great to be home, you guys. It's so incredibly amazing to talk with people that know exactly how things are. And Bob, I'm like totally blown away. I am so blown away that you're walking. I hope that you have video of this because
we do.
You know,
we do. I'm actually getting it all together now, different footage of Bob, so it'll go online in the next day or so.
You think you're blown away?
Okay.
I'm blown away.
I
think we've got it dancing.
Oh my God, we got another $1 million laugher on our hands here. We love you, Katie.
Okay, it's just so great. Oh, you guys, we're gonna be doing this, and so I'm just so thrilled for the future. So
just do me one favor, Katie. Be a little bit more excited about it.
Oh my God! You know, it's like you're looking around, you're like, okay, all right, everyone, like it's time to move forward. We're gonna be doing things differently now. Gonna be moving a little.
Katie, we need you on Wednesday.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Judy. Enjoy the show premiering on Wednesday. There's your plug.
It's a new show on this channel.
Show. Judy Jandora and myself hosting, and then Lisa for our first guest. You should call in, Katie. Talk to us. It'll be fun.
All right, what time? What time is it?
4 p.m. Pacific, 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific, so whatever that is in your time zone.
Okay, perfect. Okay, all right, I'll see you guys on Wednesday. And I'll see you tomorrow,
Katie.
too. I'll be there. I love you guys. Okay.
You too.
Bye for now, darling. Okay, Chris, you have a couple of announcements.
Yes. One's a reminder that the guys on the IUV website are still looking for volunteers. They've nearly completed their writing team, and they are just looking for one or two extra people if anyone's interested in joining. This is for writing articles to submit on a regular basis to the IUV website. And Holly Tucker is the contact there. But if you go to the home page and look for volunteer under the home menu, you'll find it there. Second one is a reminder that the guys on the Absolute Data Exchange website are looking for more helpers for finding email addresses to populate in different countries all areas of commerce. That's banking, politics, and particularly we're going to start focusing on the media. And we actually want to start collecting data on alternate media radio stations to pass out messages through this network that we've created that we need to leverage as well. So more hands on deck needed in all countries, please. And drop onto the Absolute Data Exchange website and just hit the contact button and get in touch with the webmaster. And that's it.
Oh, that was quick and easy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do we got? We got 3 minutes. Do we dare take another call?
Sure, why not?
Let's do it. Area code 708. Area code 708. Nope. Okay, area code 732. Area code 732.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, hello.
Sounds like Flo.
Does sound like Flo.
Well, it's actually Flo Mark.
Hey, Flo.
So he's on here somewhere. Yeah, he's on here somewhere. This is Flo Mark from East Coast. U.S.
How you doing?
Flo, you there? Good, good. I don't know, maybe Flo fell asleep. I don't know. But he was on here with me. I just had one question. As I was listening to the call tonight, a lot of people I talk to are, interested in really, this whole new banking system. And I think what a lot of people would like to know is when can we actually start to see some kind of documents or see something that we can actually use for those purposes, before everything goes into full swing?
Well, Flo, all I can tell you is they're being worked on as we speak.
Okay.
And they have been for the last several days. Well, since last week, actually. Since this time last week.
Okay. All right.
Shoot, I think we're out of time, unfortunately.
We are out of time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Please join us again tomorrow for the Collective Imagination. And on the following day, we've got the new Eden Joy show with Brian and Judy. And Katie will be calling in. And, of course, Transformation and the Remembering on the weekend. So have an amazing week, everyone. And thank you, Bob. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yes.
Yep, thank you, Lisa.
And
thank
everyone
you,
You're all very, very welcome.
Yep, and thank you to the one people listening.